You see, most of us have been conditioned to believe that the way to get someone to see our worth, to feel our presence, is through words, through explanations, justifications, reasoning, persuasion. We talk, we plead, we over-explain. And with avoidant personalities, this pattern doesn't just fail, it often backfires. The more we chase, the more they retreat. The more we try to fill the silence, the more they cling to their distance. It's counterintuitive, but here's the truth. When it comes to an avoidant, your silence, your quiet, unwavering presence is more powerful than any argument you could make, any confrontation you could initiate, any tear you could shed. Silence is not absence. Silence is intention. Silence is the declaration that your life, your energy, your time, and your love are not negotiable commodities. When you stop explaining, when you stop justifying yourself, when you stop trying to teach them how to love you or how to value you, you are doing something radical. You are reclaiming your power. And make no mistake, avoidants notice this. Deep down, they sense the shift. They feel it in the spaces you leave empty, in the moments you don't respond, in the calm that now exists where anxiety and tension once lived. They are faced with a mirror of reality that they rarely encounter, that your presence, your love, and your attention are not theirs for the taking. Think about it psychologically for a moment. Avoidants operate from a place of fear, not of you necessarily, but of intimacy, vulnerability, and the weight of being fully seen. Your words, your explanations, even your expressions of love, they can become noise to them, a signal that someone is demanding something they are not ready to give. But silence? Silence is neutral. Silence is non-threatening. Silence doesn't demand. And yet, paradoxically, it communicates the most. It communicates that you are whole on your own, that your life is moving forward, that you are no longer tethered to the push and pull of their uncertainty. It communicates boundaries, self-respect, and emotional resilience, all of which are incredibly compelling to someone who has been avoiding the very things that demand those qualities. Now, this is where most people make a critical mistake. Silence isn't passive. Silence isn't hiding or suppressing. Silence is active. It is intentional. It is a strategic choice. When you sit quietly in your life while they wrestle with their discomfort, you are holding a space that says, I am here, I am strong, I am not going anywhere, and I will not lower my standards to meet your fear. That is not cruelty, that is clarity. That is the kind of presence that forces reflection. Avoidants may resist it at first. They may try to provoke a reaction. They may reach out only to withdraw again. But the seed has been planted. They have been shown that love is not about availability. It's about presence, integrity, and consistency. And they are forced to ask themselves, often unconsciously, why is this person different? Why are they not chasing me? Why do they not bend to my fear? This is where silence becomes transformative. You see, love, respect, and desire are rarely won through words alone. They are earned through energy, through presence, through the unspoken truth of your self-worth. Your silence, when wielded with awareness and intention, becomes a statement louder than any speech. That your life moves forward, that you are complete within yourself, and that your attention is a gift, not a guarantee. Avoidants feel this deeply, even if they cannot articulate it. They feel the gravity of your quiet strength, and it can awaken in them an understanding of what it means to lose someone who cannot be taken for granted. So when you step back, when you release the compulsion to explain, to negotiate, to fight for attention, you are not abandoning them. You are honoring yourself. You are honoring the truth that your presence has value, and your absence, when necessary, has meaning. The power of your silence lies not in withholding love, but in demonstrating that your love, your time, and your energy are choices you make freely and not under duress. And here's the final, undeniable point. Silence hurts, not because it is cruel, but because it reveals reality. It forces them to face the consequences of their avoidance without judgment, without accusation, and without manipulation. And in that reflection, they often see you more clearly than they ever did when you were speaking, pleading, or chasing. Your silence, when rooted in self-respect and clarity, is not a void. It is a mirror. And in that mirror, they see the truth of who you are. You need to understand this deeply. Your value is not up for debate. It's not something that can be measured, negotiated, or diluted to accommodate someone else's fears. When you're dealing with an avoidant, they will unconsciously, or sometimes consciously, test you, push your boundaries, or diminish what they can't fully embrace. They will challenge your confidence, your choices, and even the very worth you assign to yourself. And here's the critical truth. If you allow them to rewrite your value in their own image, you lose the very thing that makes you magnetic in the first place. Avoidants operate from a place of fear. They fear intimacy, they fear vulnerability, and they fear the weight of their own emotions. But they don't just fear it, they project it onto others. And here's where most people get trapped. They try to convince the avoidant of their worth. They try to explain, negotiate, argue, and justify why they deserve love, attention, or respect. It's exhausting. And here's why it never works. Avoidants aren't capable of absorbing your value through logic or persuasion. They can only recognize it through your unwavering demonstration of it. Think about it. When you hold your standards, when you refuse to apologize for your boundaries, when you refuse to lower your expectations, you are doing something profoundly powerful. You are communicating a truth that can't be argued with. You are saying, without words, I know what I'm worth and I will not compromise it for anyone. That statement, that quiet, steady assertion of self-respect, is far more impactful than any confrontation or plea ever could be. This is where the distinction lies between desperation and dignity. Desperation is trying to fit yourself into someone else's world, bending, shrinking, and muting yourself to get their approval. Dignity, on the other hand, is refusing to compromise the core of who you are, even if it means they walk away. And here's the paradox. The more you embody dignity, the more powerfully you demonstrate your value, the more an avoidant begins to notice what they've been missing. Not because you told them, but because you lived it. Your value is rooted in authenticity. It's not in performing, pleasing, or anticipating the avoidant's next move. Your value comes from the totality of who you are, the energy you bring into the world, the integrity of your actions, and the clarity with which you hold yourself. Avoidants are drawn to this, but often it scares them. They may push back, retreat, or test you more because they are not used to someone existing fully, without compromise, without fear, without apology. And that, my friends, is the point. When you refuse to negotiate your value, you reveal a mirror they can't ignore. They see a life, a presence, a force that doesn't revolve around their insecurities, and suddenly their own fear of loss becomes palpable. Now, this isn't about ego or pride. It's not about proving them wrong or making them regret their choices. It's about alignment. It's about creating a life in which your worth is recognized first by you, not by someone else's acceptance. When you align with your intrinsic value, when you hold yourself in high regard, you automatically filter out those who cannot honor it. You stop wasting energy, time, and love on those who see you as negotiable. And here's the final, unshakable truth. Your value, when fully embraced and unyielding, is a force that transforms dynamics. Avoidance cannot control it, diminish it, or devalue it. Your self-respect becomes a lighthouse. They may drift, they may resist, but they cannot extinguish it. And if they truly wish to be part of your world, they must step into it on your terms, with respect, clarity, and intention. So today, make the decision. Refuse to compromise your worth. Refuse to apologize for your boundaries. Refuse to negotiate the love, respect, and energy that you give and deserve. The world and those who matter will respond to that energy. And those who can't, they will simply fade away. And that's not loss, that's liberation. Here's a reality we often overlook. Avoidants thrive on uncertainty. It's almost instinctual for them. They are masters of push and pull dynamics, navigating life in a way that keeps intimacy at arm's length. They create situations where you're constantly guessing, analyzing, and bending to their invisible rules. And if you are not careful, you can get caught in a cycle that slowly erodes your confidence, your clarity, and even your sense of self. The games they play are subtle, almost invisible, but they are real and they are draining. The first step to breaking free is to recognize the pattern. When an avoidant pulls away, it is often not about you, at least not directly. It's about the fear, discomfort, or past pain they carry that makes closeness feel like a threat. When they come close, they may push back. When they withdraw, they may test your commitment. And here's the catch. We often respond exactly the way they expect. We chase, we plead, we over-explain, we beg for reassurance. And in doing so, we reinforce the game. We become players in a dynamic that doesn't serve us, and more importantly, that doesn't allow them to fully show up either. Stop playing, stop chasing, stop trying to anticipate their next move or decode their behavior like some complex puzzle. This is not about winning a battle of wills. It's about reclaiming your energy and your agency. When you disengage from the patterns that keep you tethered to their fear, something remarkable happens. You no longer validate their avoidance. You no longer participate in their push and pull. And ironically, the space you create is the exact thing that draws them in. Think about it psychologically. Avoidants are often drawn to freedom, autonomy, and non-attachment. When you chase, you become another form of entanglement. You become the very thing they instinctively resist. But when you step back, when you engage with your own life, your own goals, your own joy, you become a presence they cannot control. And that lack of control, as paradoxical as it may seem, sparks interest. The very game they were unconsciously running is disrupted by your refusal to participate, and suddenly they are faced with a reality they weren't prepared for. Someone who values themselves enough not to bend to fear. Playing their games, chasing their approval, overanalyzing their words, these are not acts of love, they are acts of survival in a pattern that keeps both of you trapped. When you stop playing, you are not withdrawing out of spite. You are withdrawing out of clarity. You are creating a container for yourself that says, I will not participate in dynamics that erode my self-respect, no matter how clever, subtle, or compelling they may seem. This is where strength meets wisdom. This is where emotional intelligence meets courage. And here's the transformative truth. When you refuse to engage in their games, when you refuse to chase or decode or overcompensate, the avoidant is forced to confront the consequences of their behavior. They feel the absence of your participation as a truth they cannot ignore. They are no longer able to hide behind their push and pull because the energy that fueled it, the energy of your chasing, your emotional labor, your negotiation, is gone. And in that absence, something shifts. They are confronted not by words, but by a presence that says, I exist fully, I am whole, and I will not negotiate my integrity for your fear. This is empowerment. This is self-mastery. This is the kind of energy that is magnetic, that is undeniable, that cannot be forced or faked. It forces reflection in ways confrontation never could. They may initially resist it. They may withdraw further, test you, or even try to provoke a reaction. But your role is not to react. It's to remain grounded in your truth, steady in your self-respect, and unwavering in your commitment to yourself. So today, make the decision. Stop participating in the games. Stop bending, chasing, and negotiating for someone else's comfort. Stop giving energy to patterns that diminish you. Your life, your joy, your love, they are not conditional on someone else's fears. And in choosing this path, you are not just preserving yourself. You are creating a mirror for them to see what it means to be with someone who is whole, grounded, and unapologetically aligned with their own value. Your presence becomes the message, your boundaries the lesson, and your clarity the catalyst for change, not just for them, but for you. Let's take a moment to reflect on something profound. Joy is not just an emotion, it's a signal. It's a declaration of presence, of self-worth, and of alignment with life itself. And when it comes to avoidance, joy is transformative because nothing unsettles someone who fears intimacy more than seeing you live fully, vibrantly, and freely without depending on their approval, their validation, or their attention. Joy is your power, and it is perhaps the most silent yet devastatingly effective force you can wield. Most people think that influence comes from words, persuasion, or confrontation. But in reality, energy speaks louder than speech. When you are truly happy, engaged in your passions, and fully alive in your own skin, you are broadcasting a frequency that cannot be ignored. Avoidants are drawn to independence, to freedom, to autonomy. And when they witness someone who embodies all of these qualities effortlessly, they are confronted with a truth that both attracts and terrifies them. You are not tethered to their fear. You are not dependent on their emotional availability. You are whole, and your life is abundant with meaning and fulfillment. Joy is contagious, but it's also revealing. It illuminates what an avoidant has been missing, often without realizing it. They notice the sparkle in your eyes when you do what you love, the confidence in your posture when you walk through the world unbothered by their avoidance, the laughter that flows freely because it comes from a place untouched by fear or manipulation. These are subtle yet seismic reminders that love, fulfillment, and vitality do not require their consent. And this realization is far more powerful than any argument or confrontation you could engage in. It bypasses their defenses and speaks directly to the core of what they resist, connection that is honest, grounded, and unwavering. Here's the essential point. Joy is not about pleasing the avoidant or trying to make them jealous. It is not a weapon or a tactic. It is an authentic reflection of your own internal alignment. When you prioritize your happiness, cultivate your passions, nurture your relationships, and honor your dreams, you are asserting a truth that cannot be negotiated. Your life has meaning independent of their choices, and your energy is sacred. This is the kind of presence that forces reflection, that awakens longing, and that silently communicates boundaries and self-respect all at once. Think of it this way. Avoidants operate from a place of scarcity. The scarcity of safety, the scarcity of trust, the scarcity of emotional availability. They often fear that intimacy will overwhelm or consume them. When you exist in joy, you embody abundance. You become a living proof that connection and fulfillment do not require surrendering your power, compromising your values, or diminishing your light. Your energy becomes magnetic precisely because it is untouchable by fear. It doesn't demand, it doesn't chase. It simply exists, vibrant and full, and in its existence, it reshapes the dynamic. Joy is also a form of resistance. Not aggressive, not confrontational, but steadfast. It says, I will not dim myself for your comfort. I will not shrink for your fear. I will not pause my life to accommodate your avoidance. And here's the most important part. When you live in your joy consistently, the avoidant is forced to either step into a similar alignment or confront the reality that they are losing someone whose energy and presence they cannot replicate. You are no longer available for manipulation, games, or emotional tests. You are available only for connection that honors the whole of who you are. So, the invitation here is simple yet profound. Choose joy. Cultivate it daily, relentlessly, unapologetically. Let it flow from your passions, your creativity, your relationships, and the deep satisfaction of living a life in alignment with your values. Let your laughter, your confidence, your vibrancy, and your light serve as a quiet, irresistible force that both inspires and challenges. When you do, you are no longer participating in the push and pull. They are the ones chasing understanding, clarity, and presence, because you have become the embodiment of the very energy they unconsciously crave but fear to embrace. Joy is not just happiness. Joy is power. Joy is autonomy. Joy is the silent declaration that your life, your energy, and your presence are not negotiable. And when you live this way, you are no longer reacting to fear, you are inspiring reflection, respect, and even longing. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood concepts in relationships, especially when it comes to avoidance. Many hear the word and imagine coldness, indifference, or even cruelty. But detachment, when done consciously, is neither of these things. Detachment is clarity. It is the practice of standing firm in your self-respect while holding space for the other person's journey without trying to control, change, or rescue them. And when you combine detachment with compassion, you enter a realm of influence and power that words alone could never achieve. Avoidants operate from fear, the fear of being consumed by intimacy, the fear of vulnerability, the fear of losing autonomy. Their distance is not always a reflection of their feelings for you. It is often a reflection of the discomfort and anxiety they feel within themselves. And here is where most people falter. They react to their distance with frustration, anger, or desperate attempts to pull them closer. They try to bridge the gap through reasoning, pleading, or emotional labor, not realizing that this very energy reinforces the cycle they are caught in. The more we resist their distance, the more we get tangled in the push and pull that defines their world. Compassionate detachment, however, is radically different. It is not ignoring, punishing, or withdrawing in anger. It is stepping back with understanding, with empathy, and with a deep awareness that you cannot fix someone else's fear. You cannot negotiate their comfort or force their growth. What you can do, what you must do, is protect your energy, honor your boundaries, and preserve your sense of self, all while recognizing that their reactions are a product of their own inner struggle. This is where the power lies. By detaching with compassion, you create a space where the avoidant no longer feels pressured, judged, or manipulated. You remove the emotional hooks that often keep them in cycles of avoidance. And paradoxically, it is in this space of freedom from chasing, freedom from demands, freedom from emotional chaos, that they begin to confront the reality of what they are losing. Your calm, composed, and compassionate detachment becomes a mirror. They see the life, the energy, and the presence they have been resisting, and they are forced to reckon with the consequences of their avoidance. Think of it psychologically. Avoidants often struggle with connection because it triggers a sense of vulnerability they cannot tolerate. When we react with desperation or blame, we reinforce the idea that intimacy is dangerous, that closeness equals threat. But when we respond with compassionate detachment, we communicate a radically different message. I see you, I respect you, I honor your journey, and I also honor my own. This duality is deeply disarming. It is neither coercive nor aggressive. It is simply aligned. It is truth in action. And avoidants, even when they resist acknowledging it consciously, feel the force of it. Detaching with compassion also transforms your own experience. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of trying to control what is beyond your control. You no longer carry the weight of someone else's fear. You no longer compromise your peace for the sake of their comfort. You step into a life where your energy is spent intentionally on growth, joy, connection, and purpose, rather than on chasing what cannot be forced. In this state, you are not only empowered, you are magnetic. Your presence becomes irresistible not because you demand attention, but because you exist fully and unapologetically. Here's the subtle, profound truth. When you detach with compassion, you communicate more powerfully than confrontation ever could. Avoidants cannot deny the clarity, strength, and balance you demonstrate. They cannot ignore the calm integrity of someone who refuses to be pulled into drama or chaos. And while detachment may initially provoke discomfort or resistance, over time, it forces introspection. It forces them to ask themselves questions they may have avoided for years. What am I missing? What does it mean to lose someone who cannot be taken for granted? Detachment with compassion is not a strategy to manipulate or punish. It is a conscious alignment with truth, self-respect, and integrity. It is the practice of showing up fully for yourself while allowing others to navigate their journey as they must. And in doing so, you teach one of life's most difficult lessons. Love is not control, and intimacy is not coercion. True connection comes from freedom, clarity, and mutual respect. So if you are holding back, if you are bending, if you are trying to force presence where fear dominates, remember this: your power lies not in chasing, but in stepping back. Your influence lies not in confrontation, but in alignment. And your clarity lies not in reaction, but in compassionate detachment. There's a power in absence that is often underestimated, especially when it comes to someone with avoidant tendencies. For years, many of us have been conditioned to believe that to be loved, to be seen, to be valued, we must be present, constantly engaging, constantly explaining, constantly available. But with avoidance, presence can sometimes be a trap. Your constant availability becomes the backdrop of their avoidance, a safety net they know will never disappear. And in that safety net, they never fully confront what it means to risk losing you. Absence, however, changes the dynamic completely. It is not about punishment, and it is not about playing a game. It is about clarity, consequence, and self-respect. When you step away, when you allow yourself to occupy space fully independent of their approval, you activate a force that cannot be ignored. Avoidants are used to having people in orbit who bend, who accommodate, who chase. But absence disrupts that rhythm. It removes the familiar energy they rely on. And in that void, they are forced to confront a truth they often hide from themselves. Your presence is not guaranteed, and the connection they have taken for granted is no longer automatic. This is where the unseen consequence emerges. Avoidants are not used to facing the impact of their avoidance without the buffer of your compliance. When you are gone, not in anger or retaliation, but in integrity and self-alignment, they are confronted with a reality that can be both unsettling and illuminating. They begin to recognize the value of what they had, the depth of your presence, and the magnitude of what they may be losing. Your absence is not a threat. It is a mirror reflecting their behavior, their patterns, and their choices in ways words could never achieve. Think about it. Throughout your relationship, your energy, your attention, and your care have likely been constants. You adapted, you accommodated, you adjusted to their fears and boundaries. And often, you did this at the expense of your own freedom, your own needs, your own growth. Absence changes that equation entirely. It reintroduces balance. It signals that your life, your love, and your energy are not infinite resources to be taken for granted. They are intentional, sacred, and guided by choice. And this revelation, this sudden recognition of autonomy, can be profoundly affecting to an avoidant. The beauty of absence is that it does not demand an immediate response. It does not plead or coerce. It simply exists, steady, consistent, and unwavering. And in that steadiness, the avoidant is confronted with a paradox. The thing they often fear, the potential loss, the recognition of their own limitations, is what may ultimately draw them closer to reflection, growth, or even connection. Your absence is a quiet, powerful educator, teaching lessons about respect, accountability, and the true weight of presence. There's also a philosophical dimension here. Human connection thrives not on possession but on freedom. Avoidants more than most are instinctively aware of this principle, even if they resist it. By withdrawing, you honor the natural order of autonomy while simultaneously honoring yourself. You are demonstrating that love, attention, and engagement are not commodities to be demanded. They are expressions of mutual choice. And when someone has been accustomed to taking for granted, the sudden realization that your presence is optional is often the catalyst for awakening. Now, here's the subtle yet powerful truth. Absence works because it shifts the focus away from reaction and toward reflection. Avoidants are forced to sit in the space you once filled, to confront the silence, and to recognize the gap that has emerged. They cannot manipulate it, argue with it, or control it. It simply exists, a constant reminder that what is precious cannot be assumed, and that love, respect, and presence are earned through alignment, clarity, and choice, not through chasing or avoidance. Your absence also empowers you. It allows you to reclaim your energy, to focus on your passions, your growth, and your fulfillment. You are no longer expending yourself to bridge a gap that cannot be bridged through chasing or compromise. And in this state of self-alignment, your presence, should you choose to re-engage, is more magnetic, more intentional, and more alive than ever. It communicates not desperation, but integrity, not pleading, but strength, not attachment, but sovereignty. So remember this, absence is not emptiness. It is a signal. It is a mirror. It is a force that allows both you and the avoidant to witness what matters most. And in that witnessing lies transformation, reflection, and the undeniable clarity of truth. So let's step back and see the truth of what we've explored today. We've talked about silence, not as weakness, but as your loudest declaration of worth. We've confronted the idea that your value is non-negotiable, that no one's fear or avoidance can diminish the power of your self-respect. We've discovered that playing their games only drains you, while stepping out of the push and pull allows clarity and influence to rise. We've recognized that your joy is not just happiness, it is power, energy, and magnetism that cannot be ignored. We've explored the art of detachment, done with compassion, which frees both you and them from cycles of fear. And finally, we've uncovered the unseen consequences of your absence, the quiet force that teaches more than confrontation ever could.